So my name's Ian Gotts. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Elements. So 3 numbers, 10, 20, 30. 10 years as a consultant with Accenture, 20 years as a Salesforce customer, 30 years doing business analysis, business change, business process improvement. So yes, I'm very old. But hopefully there'll be some stories that you can relate to as we go through this. And by all means, jump in and ask questions and let's get a debate going. But I think innovation is really important. It's really important at a global level. 2020, there was $2.1 trillion spent on innovation across the world. That's 2.5% of the global GDP. So just to bring that to the real world, if you put a dollar bill on top of another dollar bill and lined them all up, how far would that go? 140 miles. So that would get all the way to Shenandoah. So that's what $2.1 trillion is in dollar coins, in dollar notes. So clearly it's really important, but there are some interesting trends that have come out of that innovation that senior leaders are worried about. Number one is that they're really worried about actually forcing it through, so therefore as government is actually forcing the pace of innovation. And in fact, there was a quote here, and I'll read it because I don't want to get it wrong because it's from the Premier of China. He said, "Technological innovation has become the main battlefield of the international strategic game." So that's the China's president. So you're going, that's great, Ian, but what's this got to do with us? Well, number one, it's governments saying we need to force this. The second is that they want to drive up the level of risk-taking. So through innovation, through investment, driving up risk-taking. And the third is they actually want to maximize the benefits from it. So I think all of those are relevant to all of you, yes, in terms of what we're trying to do around innovation. So who here is actually trying to drive innovation in their organization? A few of you? Everybody. Good, which is why we're here. So why is this relevant to organizations, to your organization? I think the thing is, how do we actually drive that innovation? And unfortunately, there's some... innovation is not something people want to do. You're all here because you're senior. You want to do it. But actually, the research says that people don't want to do this. There was a Canadian university, Toronto University, went and looked at 1,000 knowledge workers. And there were 3 age ranges, 35, under 35, 35 to 45, 45 and above. The level of innovation acceptance was under 25%. The level of risk-taking was under 15%. So we've got a huge challenge here in terms of, we're all talking about wanting to do innovation. I think organizations at a high level realize it's important, but actually the people who are actually going to make that innovation work don't want to do it. So it's not that we don't want to do innovation, we just want to call it something different. And that's why people are frightened of innovation. It says, if it can make your job easier, it can probably make it irrelevant. I mean, particularly at the moment, people are worried about job losses. So we need to reframe innovation in a way that people are going to go, yeah, I want to do this. I can see it will benefit me. It will benefit my role. It will benefit actually the organization. So we need to call it something different. Call it ideas. Call it process improvement. Toyota had this idea of 1%. Everyone in the organization needs to make their business 1% better every day. It was framed in terms of continuous improvement, which is really what this is all about. Innovation isn't that one spark where the CEO comes back from a conference and goes, I've got it. Don't worry, everybody stop. I know exactly what we're going to do. Life's not like that. COVID did a bit of that to us, didn't it? That digital transformation piece, that drove digital transformation. But a lot of it was evolution of where we currently are. It's moving the game on, it's innovation, and it's continuous improvement rather than that one spark of genius. Is this making sense? Good. So I want to pick up 3 points, really, sort of how to make innovation work. And the rest of this conference, there are some great speakers talking about specific practices, some methodologies, some tools and techniques. I want to draw sort of a higher level view about this, about some of the things it takes to make innovation work that I've seen from observation. Okay? The first is environment. The environment is about giving people the ability to take risk. Do you remember I talked about that research that said people don't want to take risks? It's funny, I remember I worked at, when I first left university, I worked for British Railways, so the railroad company. And I was young, excited, wanted to go and do things. And everybody went, oh, don't do that, you'll get sacked. And I went, okay, but Pete over there makes mistakes all the time and he gets promoted. Yeah, I know. So I want to do that. Oh, no, don't take risks. So hang on, how do I reconcile those two things? You make mistakes and get promoted, but I don't want to take risks. And that was in an organization where it was very difficult to get fired. I'm now living in America. I know that's a very different world. But we still need to encourage people to take risks. So Netflix, I'm not sure if anybody ever read this book, Rules, No Rules. They've got a very interesting approach. Let me just read it. The first is build up a talent density. That's about hiring the very best people. Hiring the very best people. And they call it talent density. A great workplace is stunning colleagues. The second is increase candor. Say what you really think with positive intent. And the third point is, I think, the one that's relevant here. Start removing controls. Remove vacation policy. Remove travel and expense policies. Give people the space to innovate, rather than giving them constraints to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. That doesn't mean everybody takes constant vacation and everybody flies business class or books private jets, but people have got you've hired the people and you encourage them to do the right things because they're there to do the right things. And you take away some of those barriers. So this idea of actually giving people the opportunity or the environment, the culture to be able to do the right things. One of Elements' core values is trust. And it's not just the trust of trusting your colleagues to do the right things, but trusting yourself to make mistakes and trusting the organization not to keep on reminding you about them. We would rather ask for forgiveness rather than permission. That's one of our statements. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. That enables people to do the right thing, try new stuff. If it doesn't work, learn from it and move on, rather than making a mistake and someone goes, yeah, do you remember you did that last time? And it comes back to haunt you. That kills innovation. It kills any ability for anybody to want to do anything different and new because they're always constantly worried about whether it will come back and hit them. That kills the pace of change. That kills the ability for people to actually enjoy being at work because they can do stuff. So if we can kill off that blame culture and again, if you have some of those cultures in place at the moment, you need to give some examples of someone made a mistake and they got celebrated for it because they learned from it and moved on. Okay? Really important. And I hadn't really appreciated it. This is the second company I've run where we've had this idea of ask for forgiveness, not permission. It makes so much difference in terms of the attitude of staff, the attitude, and also the way you're hiring people. But it does require that first point, which I said, which is talent density. You've got to hire people, not just in terms of who are bright and do the right job, but actually have the right intent. I mean, the idea of I've joined this job because I think I can steal quite a lot of stationery, take a lot of vacation time, is probably not the people you want to hire. You want people who are passionate about your product, your service, your customers, which means that when you give them the space to do the right thing, they genuinely are doing the right thing. So if we've got that environment in place, then how do we actually drive those actionable innovations? So this is all about speed to adoption. I don't care whether you've got an idea and you've actually got it documented. I want to see it actually happening and changes making place in the workplace. Okay? So this is all about innovation landing. That quote, it says, possibly the most common error of a smart engineer is to optimize a thing that should not exist. Make sense? It's not a very popular quote. Well, it's a great quote, but actually it's Elon Musk, who apparently is a bit Marmite at the moment. You either love him or hate him. But again, smart engineer, and he's all about make the requirements less dumb, delete the back part of the process, then optimize, then accelerate. Okay? Automation, the only place automation is ahead of simplify is in the dictionary. I'll say that again. The only place that automation is ahead of simplify is in the dictionary. We need to simplify stuff, get better requirements before we start building, before we start making changes. Getting rid of stuff that doesn't work actually is a great innovation. Short story. My winter project is I took an empty panel van, an Amazon van, and turned it into an RV. So my wife and I could go and explore bits of America. I live in San Francisco, so a chance to explore some of the great parks around the country. But we spent ages looking at the requirements. So when people look at our van and go, oh, I'm not sure how you're going to go off the grid and live on that, that was never a requirement. I don't want to live in a van forever. It's a go away for a weekend, go away for a week. They went, oh, what about a shower? No, my wife will not be showering in a van. We will stay in an RV camp. Okay? Which means if we're staying in an RV camp, then the electricity doesn't need to keep us off the grid for weeks on end because we're always near an RV camp. Once we got those requirements set, everything went from that. That was the first thing. The second thing is I spent my life in back in the UK racing competitive sailboats. And there's a guy called Arthur Fox who designed boats, said the only place for weight is in a steamroller. The same is true for an RV. How many of you have rented RVs in the past? A few of you? You know what they're like? They've got these big pull-outs and they've got the microwave up high and they've got all these cupboards. That is the wrong place to put weight in an RV. You want all the weight down low, you want to keep all the weight out and actually reduce all the weight. So again, lots of the requirements we had there was how do we actually build a van that weighs very little, keep the weight down low. Yeah, we wanted a granite-looking top, but that's really heavy. But we found that you could pour epoxy tops, which are about 1 millimeter thick, really lightweight. And the van's just been featured in one of the van builders' sites as innovative. I don't think it was really innovative. We just came up with some really sensible requirements and just worked our way through and built it. And when you put it all together, you go, that was quite innovative. But actually, it was back to some really basic requirements, which is keep weight out. We're only going to spend a couple of days away from the grid, and suddenly it all works. Suddenly, we don't need a shower. It means we can have a short wheelbase rather than a long wheelbase. Sorry, I'm geeking out about RVs now, aren't I? But you get the point. If you understand the requirements before we start building. The other thing is we built a full-scale model in our garage in cardboard. You're like, that's kind of weird. No, it isn't, because every time we rented one, we came back and went, oh, that doesn't work. It was a lot easier for me to cut the cardboard around than actually having built an RV and then have to pull stuff out and rebuild it. So we spent quite a lot of time in the prototyping stage, in the delete or part of the process or simplify or optimize the design. The fridge moved to 3 different places in the 5 months up to the van arriving. Now, we were saved because we ordered the van and it took 7 months to arrive, which meant I had no chance of doing anything for 7 months. I could only plan. I know what I'm like. If the van had arrived, I would have been there with a jigsaw. Luckily, 7 months time frame meant that the van didn't arrive, and we had time to do that analysis and design piece properly. And again, that's what I encourage all of you to do. Fight the desire to let's start building before you genuinely worked out what the changes are, and then make sure you've designed those and done the analysis first. One of the things in Elements we talk about is before you build the thing right, build the right thing. Spend more time on understanding what you're going to go and build before you start building it. I think the biggest issue with Salesforce is it's so easy to build things. Biggest strength is it's so easy to build things. Biggest weakness is it's so easy to build things. Worst word is just. Can you just add a pick list value? Of course I can. But should you? So that's all about this part about for innovation is fixing the design before you start making changes. Because that's what the plan looks like, but reality is it's going to be pretty hard getting innovation to stick. So you need to make sure that, again, you've got something where you've thought about it before you start going on this path. There's a process diagram there. Most business changes only work if people understand what they're meant to be doing differently. Yes? And that is a process diagram. So for some of the audience, they may be going, yeah, I love process. The other half of you, it's binary. People either love them or hate them. But if you want people to do things in a consistent way, this is where the rubber hits the road. It's the detail. It's exactly what do you want me to do differently. So attached to one of those paper clips might be, here's the statement of work. Here's the work instruction. If you want people to change to do something differently, you've got to make it easy for people to understand what they're going to be doing differently. Short story. Persimmon Homes. They sell property off plan. So they take you to an empty plot of land and go, your house is going to be here. And then you sign a contract and they build your house, and then you've got your house. And they found that one person in the sales team was getting a 30% better close rate. Because people would go to the plot of land, come back and go, I definitely want to do that, and then they wouldn't do anything about it. But this one person, she was getting 30% high close rate. I mean, what do you do? She said, I don't do anything really very different. I do what everyone else does. Clearly not. What is it you do differently? And she said, what I do is I take them to the property, and when we're looking around the property, I take a photograph of them, and I send that photograph and say, this is where your new home will be. So we got them to pitch them with their home. They got a photograph, not actually a physical photograph, which they pinned on their board, and that was the one that was where the house was going to be. That's just a little step in there, just a little detailed change, massive innovation. So a lot of making innovation stick is actually getting down to a level of detail where it's a process or a change to a process. And these are great because you can start to talk to people about, okay, what is the change that we need to go and make? So the other thing, of course, we need to do is we need to give people a chance to actually give that feedback. when stuff isn't working, those ideas, we're not talking about the CEO coming back with this great idea. We're going to implement Genie. We're going to implement Einstein. Well, I think we've all heard those. But it's lots of little changes. And we need to be able to capture those changes in the moment. If someone says, oh, yeah, there's a form you have to fill out, and it's on a website somewhere, and if you could fill it out and there are 42 fields with your idea, it's not going to happen. You want to capture them in the moment. So there on a process step, there's a button there that says, I have an idea. You can start typing it in, and then that is then related to that process. That's starting to drive that lower level of innovation. Because innovation happens at two levels. Top down, we need to implement Einstein. Bottom up, I've had some interesting ideas. This is how this works differently. A great innovation that I've seen is Gong. Who's heard of a company called Gong? A few of you? It listens to sales calls, customer success calls, but then does some really clever analysis of how long people are spending asking questions versus talking, at what point, what terms keep on popping up. It's been great in terms of coaching our customer success and sales teams because we've got some actionable data there. So again, we're applying an innovative technology, which is simply listening to calls. It's then pulling out some data, and then we can start to make some changes to the way things work. And then the other places you can capture feedback is in Salesforce, in a field. Here, or in whatever application. We've got too many stages in our opportunity process. This is where you can capture it. Someone said, you've got a problem when you've got more opportunity stages than you have employees. But again, pick list values are rather like glitter, and once you've got them, you can't get rid of them. So you just keep on adding them. But again, this is where you were capturing the innovation of, this doesn't work for me. Here's a suggestion. So it's trying to capture that in a moment without people going, oh, that's a stupid idea. Again, back to my earlier comment about trust. Yeah, it may not be a great idea from your perspective, but let's at least throw it in the pot and start thinking about it. Okay? So can you do something for me? Can you all cross your arms? Oh, it's all got interactive now. Ooh. Okay, cross your arms. Right, have a look at which arm is on top. Okay? Now, can you do it the other way with the other arm on top? Okay, so that is exactly how change works. Okay, there are some people going, I'm not doing whatever he says. No, I don't do arm stuff. Other people going, yeah, how did they do it? They're looking at somebody else. There are some people just went, I can do this really easily. That's the issue with change, is actually it's uncomfortable. People don't want to do it. I do this quite a lot, so it feels the same on both ways. But actually, for some of you, you've only ever crossed your arms in one way. It's the same as when you put your hands together. Put your hands together with your fingers like that. Think about which thumb's on top. Okay? If your left thumb is on top, you're more likely to be successful, better lover. No, I'm just joking. It makes no difference whatsoever. But put your hands together and then put the other thumb on top. Again, feels uncomfortable, but if you do it enough times, eventually it becomes comfortable. That's what we've got to try and fight. This idea that, but I could do that, but it's too hard and I can't remember and I'll have to go back and actually I'll go and do it the way I used to. So even though we've had innovation, we've got those ideas in, we've designed them, we've thought about how it's going to work, we now need to get people working in a different way and seeing the benefits of them. So this is all about making it stick. So again, some research came from Accenture, a whole bunch of research of their senior customers. These are the reasons why change doesn't work. 64% lack of buy-in that change is necessary. So there are lots of different models of change. COVID clearly with digital transformation was the biggest driver. If we don't go online, then our business is broken. But we don't get those opportunities all the time. Sometimes you need to go and create a reason why we have to go and change. Sometimes it's just continuous improvement culture, but that happens less frequently. So sometimes you have to look for that catalyst, that one reason. We're moving from Classic to Lightning in Salesforce. That's our reason to make those other changes. So I didn't ask, how many people are Salesforce customers? Use Salesforce? Lots of you, okay? Some of you? Okay. There was Salesforce has just gone, right, we're getting rid of process builder workflows, we're moving to flow. Yes, that's a technical operation, but just a great opportunity to simplify, get rid of the stuff you don't need to do. If you just go lift and shift, you've missed that opportunity for that reason for change. So I'm always looking for some catalyst to tag onto, which is a bigger deal than we all need to change, because nobody wants to do that. So there's something called DevOps Center, which has been launched by Salesforce, moving away from change sets. Hooray! But again, if you miss the opportunity of that shift to make the change to the way your development process works, you've missed the opportunity. Now, 44% say lack of change management skills. That's why consultants are around. That's why presentations like the ones you're going to hear over the coming 2 days are here, to help people think about ways of driving change. One thing I've noticed actually is when you've got people and you're trying to get them to change, everyone focuses on the people who don't want to change, don't they? They try and convince the people who don't want to change they should do. You should ignore them. So they're the people who don't want to change. You ignore them. You come over to these people over here who do want to change, and you help them change. You make them look like complete stars and make them look like shit. Because then the people in the middle will go, hey, that really works. I'm going to go that way. Those people over there can stay on their own forever, but you'll burn up so much energy in cycles trying to get them to change when they're never going to change or they're unlikely to. And again, I think that's focus on the people who want to change, help them be successful, build internal case studies of how they have been successful, how it's made a difference to their career, how they spend less time agonizing over things that don't work well. And then you'll find that the middle group will actually move across to that. So there are lots of little technique-y type things that you can do to think about how you start to drive change. But it's all about this, back to crossing your arms, putting your fingers together. It's in helping people make it feel more comfortable to do the right thing. It's giving people access to the right information for that new way of working. Back to my Persimmon Homes idea. Yes, it's great to do. So I heard that you took photographs, but exactly how do you do that? Where's the step-by-step? Help me through that in the early stages. Give me the training content to show me how I need to work differently in the new way, and I'm more likely to adopt it. I'm more likely to do that than revert back to the old way of doing things. And 44%, no senior champion. I'm surprised it's that low, but again, without a senior champion who's there helping you get through and pushing it and being the leader, the person who's making those changes, who's out there, who genuinely cares about that, as you go through all the difficulties, makes it really hard. I would suggest if you can't find a senior leader for that innovation, then walk away. Or find another leader, Because without that support, you're not going to get all the way through from idea, through analysis, through build, all the way into implementation. And it doesn't always go well. So there's a short video. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this.
This is a square. Can you guess which spot that goes in?
The square.
That's right. It goes in the square hole.
Yes. Okay.
And how about this rectangle? That one
also the square.
That goes in there too.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got this thin rectangle.
The thin rectangle.
Can you guess where that goes?
The thin rectangle.
That's right. It goes in the square hole. And up next, a cylinder.
The circle.
I think that goes in
the circle.
The square hole. Now, we've also got this semicircle right here. Do you see a slot that would fit
the semicircle?
Semicircle?
The semicircle.
That's right. It's the square hole. Okay. Up next, the triangle. We know what hole that goes into,
triangle.
Right?
Triangle.
That's right. The square hole. And up next, we have the arch.
The arch. The arch.
You guessed it.
The arch.
It goes in the square hole.
How many of you can relate to that? Yeah? Where you built something, you knew how it was meant to work, and it doesn't matter how you built it, it gets used in a completely different way. There was a very interesting Finnish I can't remember which town it was in Finland, but what they used to do is the park service, they used to go and look at the park immediately after it had snowed. And they used to go and look at where all the footprints were, and then they go and put paths there. Was that innovation? They looked at where people really walked when they didn't know where the paths were and went, in that case, we'll put paths there. Sometimes you need to go and work out what people are doing and go, okay, if that's what you want to do and it works for the company, let's work that way. So again, innovation, as I started, was not necessarily some huge idea. It might be, but a lot of it is actually lots of little things done really well. Back to the Toyota way. 1% changed every single day by every single person. And it just gently chips away and chips away. And if you look back over 6 months, you go, wow, that was a really innovative period of time, but it wasn't some massive spark of inspiration. and then the whole company got turned on its head necessarily. I think we're now entering that period post-COVID. We're here in person. We're not wearing masks. We're wearing masks on planes. This is not a hybrid event. We're still, I think, innovating our way to how work now works. Conferences are up massively. People are now using this as the place where people come and meet rather than going to the office all the time. So I think we're still innovating our way through from everyone's at home through to how do we do hybrid working. And again, there'll be some bumps in the road about how we do that. Different organizations will innovate in different ways. I mean, my next door neighbor, he's the CMO of a Zapier, 100% remote forever. I went, how do you make that work? They said, because we fly to lots of places and we do these sorts of things for internal events. So we've still got some innovation to do there. We got forced to all be at home and suddenly we're all coming back. Or maybe not. I mean, I live in San Francisco. The city's still dead. I'm not sure what Pittsburgh's like as a city. But San Francisco, everyone was with technology knowledge workers. We sent everybody home because of COVID 2.5 years ago. And we said, you can all come back. And they went, why? Why is because we're not human doings, we're human beings. We actually need to be around people. So therefore, we need to find, again, excuses to get people together. That's that level of innovation. It's not dramatic, but it's actually, okay, what works? Let's innovate. What works? What works? Well, so let me just summarize. Innovation is actually only makes sense if you can actually turn it into actionable changes in the workplace. It may start with a bright idea. It may start with an executive mandate. It may start from the top, or it may start from the bottom. We need to capture all of those, turn them into actionable items where people can actually make a change every day and see a difference. If we do that, we've generally built an innovative environment.